Hundreds of thousands of people across the province are still without power after an ice storm pummeled parts of Ontario. The OPP are urging people in those areas to stay off the roads until conditions improve.
Avoid all non-essential travel. Just keep yourself safe. Best thing that you can do, bundle up if your house is cold, or if you have friends that might have some power, try to see if they'll let you come on over. We anticipate that at least for the next 24 hours that we'll see power slowly come back. But again, you got to imagine it is fairly chilly out there still.
As of tonight, nearly 450,000 customers remain without power. Hydro crews are working to get people reconnected. But as the CBC's Nicole Williams tells us, it could still take some time because of the weather.
Parts of central and eastern Ontario have literally frozen over. Trees, roads, and power lines crusted over with layers of ice.
You see all those branches down around the car. He was on the other side of the car, scraping his windshield, and that thing came down and just smashed over top of the car.
On Sunday, more than 400,000 customers were without power.
We're seeing incredible images of trees down across roads. So those also need to be cleared in order for them to get to the customers.
Peterborough and several townships north of Toronto declaring states of emergency.
My mom's hasn't had power most of the day, all night.
Ontario Provincial Police responding to hundreds of weather-related reports since Friday.
We're getting calls about people who are getting injured from falling trees as they're out on their property looking at it. We're getting calls from people getting injured in motor vehicle collisions.
One in eastern Ontario sent 7 people to hospital, another killing a 33-year-old woman, though the exact cause is still under investigation.
This is one of the more extensive freezing rain disaster events that I've been through, and I've been through quite a few of them.
At Ottawa's International Airport, dozens of flights were delayed or canceled, stranding passengers in parts of the U.S. like Washington and Florida. And in the city, even the sidewalks weren't safe.
This storm is expected to continue moving east through Quebec and into the Maritimes. Officials are urging people to take extreme care and to stay off the roads if possible. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, Ward Anderson has been tracking the storm. He joins us now with the very latest. Ward, how's it looking?
Well, Natalie, it goes without saying that it has been a very tumultuous and at times devastating weekend throughout this ice storm we've had since Friday. And although the most severe aspects of the storm have passed, we are not quite out of it. As we speak, there is still over 340 Ontarians without power. This is continuing. Crews working around the clock trying to get that restored, but you can see just how far it goes, these power outages. A state of emergency was declared today in Peterborough. That has since been lifted, but again, crews working around the clock. And in Aurelia, where the entire city faced power outages, that has also since been lifted. But moving forward, we are not quite out of it. We do have this thunderstorm forecast, that potential for thunderstorms in effect, especially in southern Ontario, over there in Windsor, right along our southern border. The system is going to continue to move its way out through the rest of the night, and we'll be going into Monday with a drier spring day. It'll be a little bit warmer, but it's going to get cold again. I'll tell you more about that in your long-range forecast coming up shortly.
Thanks, Ward. Police in Toronto arrested a man accused of randomly stabbing 3 people this past week in the downtown core. One, an unhoused person, was stabbed while they were sleeping. The 2 others while they were walking and standing. Now, none of the injuries were fatal, but as Nama Weingarten reports, the attacks are leaving people on high alert.
1 week, 1 man, 3 random stabbings, all in and around the crowded waterfront area in Toronto's downtown core. Police say the first stabbing happened around Simcoe Street and Bremner Boulevard last Sunday. Then, this past Friday, at Den Lecky Way and Queens Quay West. And finally, around King Street West and York Street on Saturday. all happening between the hours of 9 p.m. and 11:45 p.m. and ending with the suspect running away. In all three stabbings, he and his victims, who all survived the attacks, didn't know each other.
What makes it very important to us is, A, that they were unprovoked attacks, that there were weapons involved, and that the injuries were fairly serious. So that it's a big public safety concern.
The suspect was arrested Sunday and was identified as a 23-year-old man with no fixed address. He faces charges including attempted murder, assault with a weapon or imitation weapon, and failing to comply with a release order. Police declined to say what he was previously charged with. In two of the stabbings, the victims were walking or standing outside. In another, he attacked an unhoused person as they were sleeping. The randomness making passerbys feel uneasy.
That's always a risk that you have to consider for yourself, never mind poor innocent people who don't have the opportunity to go home or anywhere else safe, right?
I'm looking over my shoulder, if someone's coming up behind me, I'm a little nervous about it, which is really too bad,
If I'm walking alone and there's no one around me, then yeah, probably I would feel a little unsafe and, worried about myself.
It's a little disturbing because I work down here, so this is, I'm here in the middle of the night or the early morning, so it's a bit of a concern because, you want to be safe, get home to my family kind of thing.
I understand why they have those concerns. There are some safety tips that people can follow, just being aware of your surroundings. One of the most important things is trusting your own instincts. When in a situation where you feel something may not be right, just take action, whether it's leaving that area or even just fleeing quickly, just to preserve your own safety.
The suspect is scheduled to appear at the Toronto Regional Bail Centre on Monday morning. Naama Weingarten, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada's main political party leaders are starting their second week of campaigning. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was in Toronto today announcing a new tax policy, a new tax break for investors.
We are standing up to the Americans with a Canada First reinvestment tax cut that will bring tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars of investment into our economy.
Poilievre says a Conservative government will temporarily cut the capital gains tax for investors who sell an asset and then reinvest the proceeds in a Canadian company. The Conservatives say the plan would run to the end of 2026 and cost about $5 billion a year. Well, this comes as the Conservative leader faces questions about his campaign direction. JP Tasker has more on the new complaints and how the leader is responding.
Can't wait. Yes.
It's all smiles in front of the cameras. And there have been huge crowds at Conservative rallies.
Amazing. Wow.
But according to Conservative sources, the party's campaign is in disarray a week into the federal election. More than half a dozen insiders speaking to CBC News describe the operation as dysfunctional and a mess, with tempers flaring at party headquarters.
We cannot allow the Liberals a fourth term in office.
Asked Sunday by reporters if his campaign is missing the mark, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre talked about the risk of re-electing the Liberals instead.
President Trump has said he wants the Liberals back in power. We know why, because they will keep Canada weak.
Sources say Poilievre's top advisor, Jenny Byrne, has dropped the ball on campaign staffing, and she doesn't have a clear plan to get Poilievre back in the lead, as polls show the Conservatives are still trailing the Liberals.
I think the Conservatives are in a lot of trouble right now.
Senior Conservative strategist Corey Teneycke just helped Ontario Premier Doug Ford win big. Now he's going public with his concerns, saying Poilievre needs to better address U.S. President Donald Trump and his economic threats.
I think they have an opportunity to pivot and retool their campaign in a way that gets them focused on what I think most Canadians are voting on, which is Trump.
Teneycke argues Poilievre sounds too much like the U.S. president.
Less name-calling and sloganeering and talking about one's big, beautiful, bring-it-home tax cut. It all sounds a little too Trumpy for a lot of the voters.
Poilievre's opponents see an opening amid reports the campaign has gone awry.
Their campaign is kind of falling apart. They're fighting each other in their campaign office.
But not all Conservatives agree, pointing to those large, enthusiastic rallies. And the party's Quebec lieutenant says things are fine.
We have a good team, a great team. We work every day. We go door knocking, and I don't have any tension.
Despite calls for a change in tone, a conservative source tells me the campaign is not planning to pivot to a full-on Trump assault. Poilievre will instead focus on trying to tear down Liberal leader Mark Carney to win back voters. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, the NDP focusing on housing today. Jagmeet Singh promising a program that would offer low-interest loans to first-time homebuyers that might not be able to secure bank financing.
It's never been done before, but if we can give loans to large, wealthy developers to buy buildings, to buy homes, why can't we give everyday families a break? Why can't we help out everyday families buying their first home?
The plan will allow people to qualify for a mortgage who allow people who qualify for a mortgage to apply for low-interest loans from the federal government. Full details are to be released when the party's platform is also released. Well, Canadian music on full display tonight at the Junos in Vancouver, hosted by Michael Bublé. Our Eli Glasner was there, joins us now with all of the highlights. Eli, take us through them.
I gotta say, the opening of the show, I'd heard that Michael Bublé wanted to do kind of a tribute to the sonic spectrum of Canadian music, all the flavors, all the styles, and you wouldn't have thought a guy who kind of exploded onto the scene by singing Frank Sinatra songs would be the man to do it, but he did this beautiful medley where he was singing his own songs and then segueing into Maestro Fres Res, into Toronto's very own Janita Gandhi doing a cover of one of his songs. There was a song in Inuktitut. So it was just this beautiful combination of different styles and music. And then, I mean, Michael Bublé, certainly the man for the moment, realizing how Canadians are feeling and speaking to the audience, perhaps even speaking to America in a very strong style. Take a look.
We are the greatest nation on earth. And we are not for sale.
You could hear that crowd roar. Another big roar for Snotty Nose Rez Kids. They made history the night before. The first Indigenous group, a duo, to win Best Rap Album of the Year. And I had to show you some footage because I just think they put on a killer show. So much energy, so much style. They had Tia Wood singing with them. It was opera, it was hip hop, it was Indigenous, it was kind of everything. And I think just an amazing sign of how far they've come as a group.
So much Riz, as the kids would say there, Eli. Let's, I can't not say it, right? Okay, but there was also a lot of talent we know from Ontario. So tell us about some of those winners.
Yeah, I mean, for one, let's start with the Beaches. Back again, Juno winners again, Group of the Year. They are just having a blast. They were enjoying themselves at the Junos, winning a Group of the Year. It's funny, backstage they were talking about how they're kind of evolving as a band. Like, they're all now in therapy, but they're still messy girls, so they know they're messy girls, and that's part of it. But the other thing that they've been talking about, and so many musicians have been talking about, is the feeling of being a musician in Canada right now, and that feeling of patriotism. And Jordan Miller, she is the lead singer of the band. You may recall, she was the one singing that anthem at a hockey game, and that was a real great example of just the temperature of this nation right now. Here's what she was saying about that.
It was so exciting. I was really nervous because I'm not super good at the French version, but I didn't really have to be. It turned out because everybody sang so loud that I could barely hear myself. It feels really incredible to be a Canadian musician right now. I think a lot of us are feeling very proud of our country and of all the things that make us Canadian.
Amazing stuff. Also, a remarkable weekend for Nemesis. This is a Palestinian-Canadian artist. She took home the award for Best Alternative Album and also Breakthrough Artist. She's had a very interesting path, actually, she says, being kind of kicked off by labels because the fact that she is Palestinian and supports that cause. But she was speaking to the audience today, thanking the fans for supporting her along her journey. Very powerful stuff. Also, Josh Ross. Yes, I mean, that's the thing. We were talking about that sonic spectrum, so many musical styles. So Josh won for Country Album of the Year. He's from Watertown, Ontario. We were talking to him. He's been riding that wave. You know, country, like from Beyonce to Josh Ross, it's really been evolving and, again, having a resurgence. And he's been doing this for years, but he loves where he is right now. And then I have to also mention another, you know, very proud, kind of Scarborough's very own Boy Wonder. This is someone who has been making beats with just about everyone you can name in hip-hop. But he really started with Drake. And sure, Drake these days in the hip-hop world can be seen as a little divisive, what's been happening. But he made some time to show the love for Drake because he said, you know, Drake is still one of the best. You go around the world, everyone says that Drake's the best. And Drake really helped put this remarkable producer, Boy Wonder, who got an amazing award tonight, on the map. So he had to show that love back.
Thanks so much, Eli. That's our Eli Glasner reporting in Vancouver. A community group in Toronto is raising concerns about a proposed homeless shelter being built in their neighborhood. The site is set to be located just steps away from a senior's home and blocks away from local schools. The group is asking for a 90-day pause on the process. They say the city hasn't been transparent about the project. Meanwhile, others in the community are supportive of the site. They say the homelessness has been a major issue in the area for decades. JP Galliardo explains.
A rainy day didn't dampen this heated debate.
What is a threat? Is it threat?
Two groups, one against the shelter being built in the neighborhood and one in support of it, gathered in the parking lot where the project is set to be built. It's part of a Toronto City Council plan aiming to build 20 new shelters by 2033.
This is really a human crisis that is playing out before all of us. And some folks have been deeply engaged for quite some time looking for the city to do more. Some people say what we're doing is not enough.
66 3rd Street is expected to open between 2028 and 2030. It will house 80 people of all genders, including couples. Some here want an immediate 90-day pause. They're calling for more transparency.
The city seems to be somewhat secretive in everything they do. You know, it's either online where they limit the number of people who are allowed to come in. They did one last month where they, in a room that held like 300 people, they were only letting like 50 people in at a time.
Some are worried about the site's proposed location.
I do have concerns about like the proximity, I mean, obviously to schools, like there's schools all around here, to the seniors buildings, you know, there's lots of kids in this neighborhood.
Others living in the area say the shelter is desperately needed and has been for decades.
I've been in this neighborhood for over 30 years at this point. I've seen the fact that these people aren't coming from nowhere. These people are our neighbors. These are the people who have been here as long as I am. These are seniors. These are youth. These are people who need our help.
Leslie Gash says there are successful examples of shelters operating in the city within close proximity to schools.
Right now, there are over 100 sites being operated in the city by, 30-something community-based agencies, and they're close to schools, to libraries, to residences. They're all over the city, and they're a lot of them you would not necessarily even know there was a shelter there.
In January, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario released a report on homelessness. It found that more than 80,000 Ontarians were homeless last year, up 25% since 2022. This professor at Western University says municipalities and advocacy groups should work together.
Instead of kind of like being at odds with one another and taking an oppositional stance with one another, which I see municipalities do often, and I see advocacy groups do often with one another, we can actually find ways to come together to pressure those higher levels of government to address the structural issues that are increasing homelessness in our country.
A virtual town hall will be hosted by Councillor Morley in April, offering an update on the shelter and a space for the community to share feedback and ask more questions. JP Galliardo, CBC News, Toronto.
Community members across the province celebrating Eid al-Fitr today, coming together to give thanks to a mosque in Vaughan, marking the end of a month of fasting. The 3-day-long festival signals the end of Ramadan, with friends and family